On November 29, 2016, WWE presented the first episode of 205 Live, a new show whose roster would be exclusively made up of cruiserweight talent, those weighing 205 pounds or less. The cruiserweight division hadn't really been a thing for close to a decade at that point, with WWE retiring the original Cruiserweight Championship in late 2007. To give you a sense of how seriously they took it at the time, Hornswoggle was the champion. Now with a roster of renowned high-flying superstars from around the world on their books, and with the mainstream American wrestling style having changed significantly in the interim, WWE decided to give the Cruisers another shot, beginning with the critically acclaimed Cruiserweight Classic tournament. Given the caliber of athletes signed up for the purple brand, expectations were high. On the debut episode of 205 Live, we were introduced one by one to the Cruiserweights. More would join later, of course, but this would be the core group of performers in those early days. It's only been around 5 years since 205 Live made its bow, but a lot has changed since then. A bunch of those guys are no longer in WWE, while some are, their careers having taken drastic new directions as 205 Live faded from something that was pushed and promoted on pay-per-views to a WWE Network exclusive afterthought. Mason Ryan, Stevie Ray, Earthquake, Alundra Blaze, Norman Smiley, Zach Gowen, Bam Bam Bigelow, Ahmed Johnson, Tory Wilson, Buff, Bagwell, Robert Gibson, Dave Taylor, Terry Taylor, and Godfather's Holmes. Dwayne Gill, Adam Bomb, Michael Hayes, Cor Von, S.A. Rios, Jim Manai, the manager from Kai and Tai, Jim Powers, Francine, Jack Swagger, Mean Gene, Fat Chick Thriller, Duke the Dumpster, Oklahoma Manta. What happened to that wrestler? Some were main eventing, which leaves me lamenting. What happened to that wrestler? Some since long forgotten, but their memories live on. Austin Aries. Former Ring of Honor and TNA champion Austin Aries was calling the action on 205 Live while recovering from an injury sustained in NXT, and would soon officially join the active in-ring roster. AEW's greatest contributions to the purple brand were his series of matches with Cruiserweight champion Neville. He failed in his pursuit to win the title, and not long after was released from his contract amid speculation that he was unpopular and difficult to deal with backstage. He's since wrestled for Impact, MLW, and on the indie scene, and these days can mostly be found extolling the virtues of eating bananas while rallying against masks and life-saving vaccines. Rich Swann. One of 205 Live's standouts was Rich Swann, who defeated Brian Kendrick to win the Cruiserweight title on the show's debut episode. He lost the strap to Neville, but was an ever-present thereafter, until he was suspended following an arrest on charges of battery and kidnapping / false imprisonment related to an incident with his wife, the wrestler Sue Young, in December 2017. He was suspended by WWE, and though all the charges against him were dismissed 6 weeks later, he and WWE mutually agreed to part ways, and he was released. Like Aries, Swann did the indie, MLW, and Impact thing, finding most success in the latter, where he became a world champion. TJP. The inaugural WWE Cruiserweight Champion really made his name in the Cruiserweight Classic tournament, where he beat DeMac, Johnny Gargano, Rich Swann, Kota Ibushi, and Gran Metalik on his way to capturing the gold. Well, the purple and silver anyway. He lost it to Brian Kendrick, but was always in the mix, though he didn't regain the title before being released from his contract in February 2019. Can you guess what he's been doing since? That's right, Indies, MLW, and Impact, where he works as both TJP and under his old persona Manic, and won the X Division title. Jack Gallagher. Britain's Jack Gallagher, who had been a standout on the UK indie scene, impressed in his appearances during the Cruiserweight Classic and earned himself a contract and a place on the 205 Live roster. Gentleman Jack was a popular performer for the group and did a little bit of everything, from challenging for the Cruiserweight title to going on a losing streak and turning heel over the course of a couple of years. In June 2020, Gallagher was implicated in the Speaking Out movement and named in a 2014 sexual assault incident, which he admitted to and was released for the same day. Gallagher subsequently released a statement apologising for what he had called an isolated incident. He has not stepped into the ring since. Ho Ho Lun. Ho-Ho Lun only wrestled a couple of matches for 205 Live and a handful more for NXT before requesting his WWE release so he could tend to his sick mother. The Chinese native has since found a home in Japan's Dragon Gate promotion, where he both wrestles and produces English language commentary for international broadcasts. The Bollywood Boys. The Bollywood Boys, Sunil and Sameer Singh, weren't in 205 Live for long, at least initially, taking off after one match and doing some stuff in NXT before returning and aligning themselves with Jinder Mahal, who soon became WWE Champion. I mean, remember that? It was a thing. They had a strong run with Mahal, but ended up flipping back and forth between brands before ultimately finding themselves back on 205 Live. They were exclusively used to put over other talent, however, and it wasn't too much of a shock when they were released from their contracts in June of 2021. Hardworking, versatile, and with a lot still to offer, they will hopefully get a chance to shine elsewhere. Noam Dar. Scotland's Noam Dar made his name on the UK indie and international circuits thanks to his litany of exceptional matches, and while he had a few of them in WWE too, he's more likely to be remembered for his on-screen romance with Alicia Fox. The Scottish Supernova is still signed to WWE and these days competes in NXT UK. Tony Nese. Look at this buff bastard right here. No, not that one. This one. Handsome, athletic, chiseled like a Greek god, Tony Nese was the total package and made a fine cruiserweight champion, having belting matches with a range of different opponents. His WrestleMania 35 pre-show bout with Buddy Murphy stands out as one of the best. Though he was a champ and consistently delivered in the ring, he never got much of a sustained push and slipped down the card, ultimately being released in June of 2021. I reckon he'll be fine wherever he ends up. Drew Gulak. Drew Gulak was a good laugh in the early 205 Live days, with his gimmick campaigning for a better show that would see the High Flyers wrestle a more conservative style, complete with PowerPoint presentations outlining his ideas. A former cruiserweight champion, Gulak left WWE temporarily when his contract expired in March 2020, only to be brought back a couple of months later. Sadly, Gulak, who is now on the Raw roster, only appears occasionally and typically as something of a jobber. If you want to see him actually get time to show what he can do while still losing matches, check out some of his more recent main event stuff. Arya Daivari. Arya Daivari just had a new WWE t-shirt for him released days before he was let go. Such is life for the WWE superstar, eh? Before his release, Daivari wasn't given too much of anything to do and was clearly seen as a solid hand but not much else in the cruiserweight division. Here's hoping he finds new opportunities elsewhere in his post-WWE career. Cedric Alexander. Cedric Alexander was one of the faces of the original 205 Live roster and is a former Cruiserweight champion after winning the Cruiserweight Championship tournament in 2018. He left the brand in 2019 and his career has been up and down since. A spot in the Hurt Business was a highlight, but despite his obvious talent, it's clear that he's in and out of favour with those writing the shows who can't seem to come up with anything too compelling for him. There is a single star there waiting to break out, all he needs is the opportunity. LINCE Dorado. Sensing his 205 Live career may be going nowhere fast, LINCE Dorado pitched the Lucha House Party stable, a trio of masked luchadors that would include himself, GRAN, METALIK, and Kalisto. A fun, decidedly mid-card act, the Lucha House Party were always exciting, even if they weren't typically given anything of substance to do. Sensing a theme here? They lost Kalisto along the way, but as a tag team, Dorado and METALIK are still going strong, splitting their time between Raw, NXT, and main events. AKIRA TOZAWA. Besides a 6-day reign with the Cruiserweight title and a couple of matches against Neville, AKIRA TOZAWA is best known for his work outside the 205 Live bubble. Whether that's as a member of Titus Worldwide or being a, and I can't believe I'm saying this, multi-time 24/7 champion with his own gang of ninjas. Nowadays, TOZAWA is mostly found wrestling and losing on main events and shows up on the other shows whenever there's a battle royal or backstage skit that requires his services. Mustafa Ali. The heart of 205 Live, Mustafa Ali was one of the brand's most consistent performers from its inception and caught everyone's attention with his spirited performances full of breathtaking moves like his inverted 450 splash. Amazingly, he never held the Cruiserweight title despite many shots at it, though the quality of the matches he put on with Buddy Murphy and others certainly caught the eye. He moved up to SmackDown and found himself temporarily in the WWE title mix, famously putting on a cracking match with Daniel Bryan and Kevin Owens at Fastlane 2019. After mixing it up with the Shinsuke Nakamura's and Randy Orton's of the world, Ali's career took a sharp turn following a long hiatus as he returned to the Raw brand and was soon after revealed as the leader of the craptacular Retribution. A utility performer, Ali can fit just about anywhere on the show and should have a role to play in WWE for a long time to come. GRAN METALIK. The former Mascara Dorado was, on his day, one of the most spectacular wrestlers on the planet. He's shown glimpses of that during his time on the WWE roster, particularly when matched up against his fellow cruiserweights. His team with LINCE Dorado could potentially be a lot more than what it is, but then you could say the same thing about a large chunk of the roster these days. Brian Kendrick. And finally, the Brian Kendrick, a vastly underrated talent who enjoyed a career renaissance as elder statesman of 205 Live. A former Cruiserweight champion, Kendrick also formed teams with Jack Gallagher and AKIRA TOZAWA during his time on the Purple brand. His wrestling days are coming to a close, however, as the former Spanky is now transitioning into a backstage producer role and plans to only wrestle sporadically going forward.